Hello and welcome to the Narrowbox Comics channel. This is one of the proudest days of my life. It was actually yesterday. This came through the post from the printers. This is my first comic book. It's what I've been working on for the last 2 years, basically. Came up with a concept for this story some time ago. Was the Woking Festival, I can't remember what it was now, the Woking Science Fiction Festival. It was to commemorate when H.G. Wells was having his statue put up outside the Lightbox, and they were doing a whole festival around it. And there was a competition to write a short story for the festival, and you would be winning some kind of prize, and you'd have your work featured in a magazine that was going to accompany the festivities and beyond. And I like that idea, so I came up with a science fiction story and I started working on it. I was really excited about writing a story. I'm not really a writer in the strictest sense. I love stories. I like to write stories, but I'm not really a writer per se. And I just thought, I'd give it a go. And I found it really hard slog. It was difficult because writing is difficult. If you're not used to doing it, if you don't get practice in, if you don't, try regularly. And it was a really uncomfortable muscle to flex. It took a long time to get out. And so the closing date for the competition came and went, but the idea for the story just stayed with me. And the original idea for the story was astronauts go into space. They find a gate that's over the Earth that no one's seen. It's, because the thing about space is black, and the thing about the gate is it's black, so you can't see it. So when they accidentally go through it, they end up in a different universe and they have adventures. And the idea stayed with me, and then I kind of got thinking about one of my favorite TV shows, Farscape. It's like, what made Farscape so exciting? What made it so compelling? And I wanted to get all of that stuff into the story. And so whereas the story was about them coming back from a world and explaining what they've been through after going through the gate, this was the story focus changed for me. It was like, what would happen beyond the gate? What would the life be like if you stumbled over something that was really incredible and then you got pulled into something bigger than you? And even having all these thoughts, it took me back to my childhood when I used to watch Buck Rogers with my mum. Buck Rogers in the 25th Century was a cheesy TV show that was made to cash in on the Star Wars, popularity of Star Wars at the time. So in the late 1970s and early 1980s, you were getting a raft of sci-fi shows just popping up out of the woodwork. You got copycat films like Battle Beyond the Stars and The Black Hole. That was Disney's version of Star Wars, and they had varying quality, and but they all captured us. Like every kid I know at school was talking about these things. We all had toys from various things, but Star Wars was always the one that we talked about. But for me, when I was a kid, I saw Star Wars on repeat on the TV, and it was no different to Battlestar Galactica. Like the two were interchangeable in my young mind. Now, only now when I look at them side by side do I realize how wrong I was at the time. And obviously, you don't get many better villains than Darth Vader. So Star Wars always had the edge in terms of popularity. Everyone would always talk about it. But for me, I didn't see much difference. There was a different story. There was the story of Battlestar Galactica actually was more compelling to me because they were looking for Earth. And so there was a connection in the sci-fi stories that connects to the audience in a different way. Like you might realize that Star Wars is the big one, but you also might connect to Battle Beyond the Stars because of the time that you watched it in. Now, one of the things that I was super excited about with Farscape when I first saw it was the idea of the kinetic energy of the show. Like it bundles along really quickly. You get thrown into the action. You are actually with John Crichton as he discovers this entire world, and that's something that's just awesome. And whereas with Buck Rogers, he just wakes up in this world, kind of like a Gulliver's Travels type situation. With Farscape, you are thrown into the action, you are in the viewport. And so, but with John Crichton, he's kind of a useless figure for a few episodes whilst he's finding his feet. So I wanted to kind of, bridge those gaps. I wanted to get the thing about Buck being, bringing something to the future, being an optimistic figure. He's living in this future. Everything he's gone is lost. He's lost everything. And yet he's still able to smile. He's still able to be charming and funny. And he's still able to be proactive and optimistic in the face of that. Rather than look back and see what he's lost, he thinks about what he's going to gain. And that was an overarching part of the story of Buck Rogers that I wanted to bring in with the kinetic energy that Farscape has. And that's what Intrepid has become. Intrepid is the story of two astronauts, Jason Stornoway and Charles Sutton, who end up in the middle of a project by a billionaire who wants to relaunch the space shuttle. So the cover is obviously that. So the space shuttle is brought out of retirement. This billionaire does it just to show that he can, and he's got the money and the resources and the energy to do that. And he brings it out of retirement, and it goes into the International Space Station. Then it goes on to another mission, and the pilots, Jason and Charles, move over to a different vehicle, and hilarity ensues as they get thrown across the universe and end up somewhere completely lost. Now, it's not a massively original thing, but that's sci-fi doesn't usually have a completely original elements. So, most of the stories you've seen in sci-fi are either retellings of other stories and changed into a different format. And there's not much in the way of originality. But that's something that I was very wary of when I started writing sci-fi, because it is one of those areas where unoriginality gets called out quite quickly, and it's unfairly so, I think. And I wanted to kind of avoid direct parallels with other things, but I also realized I couldn't reinvent the wheel. So, I happily will accept that this is Farscape and this is Buck Rogers molded into one, and that is what this is. But where it differs, where I think that I've come up with something that's interesting here, is the story is optimistic. And at the moment, in a time when stories aren't, we're with this gritty realism, this idea that, you be honest about things if you were ever in these situations. I don't think that, we would be, because sometimes we need to be brave when we're not feeling brave. We need to be strong when we're not feeling strong. We need to be happy when we're not feeling happy. And I think this idea of being hysterical when you're scared, or falling into histrionics when you're angry, or you're trying to upset, you're caught in a conversation or an argument or an uncomfortable situation. It's just something that is not true to life. Maybe certain generations are happy to be more emotional, but most people in general are not completely over the top. So there is a restraint to the story and the characters in the story that I really want to see more of. I don't, not necessarily stoic, but, honest. And so the characters have very different approaches to the situation they're in. So Jason is more, gung-ho, ex-Navy SEAL, challenge, 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 go, go, go. And Charles is more of an old head who's got a life, a wife, he's got family, he's got grandkids. Losing all of that is hard on him. But yet the two men are both very optimistic, very matter of fact, and very methodical in the way that they deal with the situation they're in. And then on the other flip side of it, we've got the alien characters. We've got Jakara here. She is going to be an influential character. She's a POV character in the story. So we're coming at it from both angles. So unlike Farscape, where we see the hero thrown in with a load of alien and they become the point of view characters for the whole story, we're looking at this from different sides. So in a way, this storytelling is more like Star Wars in that Charles and Jason are more like the C-3PO R2-D2 characters, and they're exploring the world that they're in, and we're seeing it through their eyes. But in order to understand the world that they are actually in, we see the POV character from a very senior point of view. So she's a military special forces type character. She has an overview of the galaxy and the universe that they operate in that not even normal people in that space would have. So we get the combination of the two. And then later we introduce other POV characters, but they come in very sparingly. And to be honest, they wanted to keep the POV characters down to a minimum. So we have two on one side of the story and one on the other. And sometimes that will open up to other characters. So, but basically the narrative structure that I wanted for Intrepid was always going to be that. So, yeah, I'm very proud of this book. I would like people to have a look at it and find out more about it. But at the minute, we're in the crowdfunding aspect of the store of the production. And the reason we're doing this way is we're trying to build awareness slowly over time. So it will become generally available online and in shops, but there's not much point in just thrusting it into a marketplace that doesn't understand it. And this is my first book. I'm not kind of want to throw it out there to watch it sink to the bottom of the pile amongst all these big heavy hitters, like we got Mark Millar and releasing Big Game. We got Jonathan Hickman releasing Spider-Man today. So Ultimate Spider-Man today. And, I don't want to throw it out there and it just not make a splash. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up an audience slowly and surely over time. I don't care if this takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years. There'll be a whole story out there for people to get into or ignore. So that's the idea. I'm not in this to make money and to be the best person in the world. I just want to tell this story, and it's really important to me. It's become very important to me. And I also have other stories, which is why we started Narrowbox, to try and get those stories published and to kind of get into the rhythm of releasing a story and releasing a book every month or so to get the practice. Because, like I say, I'm new to this, and this has been a huge learning curve for me in putting this book together. And Narrowbox take care of the crowdfunding aspect. They're trying to build the audience, and I just trying to focus on the book and story and the design. But I'm having to do all of that side of it at this point in time, because Narrowbox is also a fledgling company. So there's a lot going on, and in this next year we're hoping to get more people on board, and we want to work with other talented artists. I want to get somebody. I've already embarrassingly I put out an email to a company I didn't even know. I was trying to get Olivier Coipel to, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name, I'm massacring his name, to do a variant cover. I mean, the arrogance of me for thinking that he would do a cover for me. Why not, eh? But if I can find the money, why not? Why not chance and ask him? So put it out there in the universe. And so I'm going to be suggesting that people who have a story in them just get out there and do it. And that's another thing that Narrowbox is all about. It's about finding people who have a story, who want to tell a story, and we will help guide people along a path to get a story that resonates with people. Because there's a lot of stories out there at the moment that resonate with tiny minorities of people, and you might get some coverage and popularity based on, certain aspects of the story that you might be trying to highlight, but at the same time you're alienating just as many people. So you don't want to get caught in that situation. And there's a lot going on in the crowdfunding scene that's so exciting and so interesting, and then some of it is so boring and depressing and negative, and I just, it's a real tightrope to walk, and it can be very detrimental to your mental health if you get involved in it. But for me, I'm old enough and ugly enough that I don't care about any of that stuff. There was only ever one focus for me. It was getting this book out. And so this is Intrepid. And on the back, we have the basic pressing. Trying to summarize this story is quite hard work, because what the story is actually about is about the astronauts being the best of humanity, being out in the unknown and handling it in the best way you could possibly handle it. And that was what I wanted to do, is when I wanted to see, there's a right thing to do and a wrong thing to do. Panic and freaking out and being stupid and disrespectful, never going to win in an unknown situation. You need to have a certain level of respect for every problem that you face. You need to be realistic about your opportunities and your outcomes. And you need to know who you are and understand that you don't have any rights in this world because you don't fit in this world. And that was what this book was all about. It's about trying to figure out, like, you're a teenager becoming an adult. You can't walk into this. You can walk into this world with a level of confidence, but you can't be arrogant. You don't know enough about the world you're living in. So you have to have a realistic strategy for dealing with the world that when you encounter it. And that's another aspect of this book. It's talking to young people, trying to give them the message and understanding of, like, the world that you're in doesn't always respond to the things that you're used to doing to get results. What works with your peers won't work with your adults. And that's another aspect of this book that I think is important. So it's for ages 12 plus. And the reason I said that, I think it's for all ages, but I don't like to make that judgment for parents. I'm trying to I want to write a story that's great for adults and children, but in order to do that, you have to be wary that you're going to cover themes that maybe aren't ready for children. And when I say themes, I don't mean anything like ideological. I'm talking about, like, what's appropriate for a child. Like, if I'm writing that Santa's not real, this is probably not going to be for 5 and 6 year olds. Do you see what I'm saying? That's when I say all ages, the themes of it. We don't want to upset anybody who wants to believe in Santa Claus. If you want to believe in Santa Claus, you can believe in Santa Claus. And I'm not here to dispel that myth for you. But I will write in my book that I don't believe in Santa Claus, and that's why it's probably not appropriate for all ages, and we started it at 12. So, people make those distinctions themselves. We just set a guide of points that allows the people to make a decision. And then if there's any, that's what feedback's for. So we want people to feedback to us and tell us that, this is not an appropriate thing for the book. You can't talk about murder and death and genocide, because unfortunately these are things that we have to deal with. And I want to look at all those, because there is a war element to the book. And there is obviously there's conflict, there's military conflict. There will be, but there's going to be heroic stuff that's happening. There's going to be characters sacrificing themselves and helping others and at their own expense and making difficult decisions. The themes that I'm talking about are universal themes that we should all get on board with, not anything ideological that only a fraction of the population will even agree with. We're talking about love, hate, murder, death, unknown, charting the unknown, understanding your place in the universe, and recognizing that there's a positivity to facing your fears, as well as there's negative aspects of it that cannot be avoided. Conflict will always bring problems that you can't deal with easily. And so it's how do you deal with the feelings that come up from these things? And again, this all translates back to what I'm trying to get across in the story. It's like the way to approach life, the way that we should be positive in the face of the cynical world that we live in. So yeah, this is my book, Intrepid. And if any of that sounds great, I don't know if I've done the best advert for it, but it is really a labor of love, and I would like you to try it. So if you want to find out more about how to get hold of this book, we're starting a new campaign for issue 2, which will launch in February. Book 2 will then be re-released in March. And obviously, one of the perk tiers I'll have is that you'll have issue 1 and issue 2. I haven't yet figured out how that's all going to fit together. And yeah, so that's basically it at the moment. And then once the cycle is all done and all the campaigns have ended, there's going to be 4 because it's issue 1 of 4, and then there's going to be issue 2 of 4 next. Once it's done, towards Christmas, I'll be doing trade paperback release that will quickly collate all of those issues together, and we'll have a backup story from a different book called Knight's Cross, or that, if failing that, it will be in The Infernal, which is another story that Narrowbox has in the back burner. So it's going to be either one of those as a backup story in the trade paperback as a little freebie, and that will be on sale directly. I believe there will be a crowdfunder for it, but it will also be on sale at the same time. So the reason that is because we want to kind of get the trade paperback will probably be funded out of the proceeds from the books, but we won't be able to do that unless we crowdfund it. Do you see what I'm saying? So we need to kind of get backers to help us get the production costs of the trade paperback done, because we won't have the full weight of the comics. The comics will be being sold on in shops and over time, and the full proceeds from those won't come in order to fund that book, if you see what I'm saying. So there will be crowdfunder for it, but it will also be pretty much on sale straight after that crowdfunder, and maybe even during it. I haven't really talked to Narrowbox about how that's going to work. So yeah, the book itself will be available for Christmas. So if we would like you to buy it and support the comic book, obviously. You get the story now, and then there's no spoilers out there, and that's it. But if you really are a trade paperbacky type person and you want to wait till Christmas next year, that's up to you. But you're missing out on a great story as it unfolds. And part of the beauty of comic books is that you get to be along for the journey when it releases. So, you know, if you want to find out what happens in Intrepid, you have to get on board and back us now. So the issue 1 will be available for issue 2s as part of the perks. Then obviously for issue 3, it'll be issue 1 and 2 for issue 3, and then for issue 4, it'll be issue 1 and 2 and 3, etc., and all the way till the end. So keep looking out for us. Back the campaigns, help us out, spread the word, share this video, like and subscribe to the channel, and that will just help us to get the company growing so that we can get these things out quicker. And if you know Olivier Coipel's number, give it to me, please, because then I can give him a call and ask him to do a variant cover for us, and all that would be very, very helpful. So yeah, Intrepid, crowdfunder coming soon to get issue 1 and 2. And thanks for listening, and see you later. Bye.